I almost released an expletive there because I'm so stunned. I'm so shocked right now. The prospect that baffles Mel Kiper Jr. is JJ McCarthy. We are here with ESPN's first draft. So JJ McCarthy is an interesting quarterback because he just won a national championship. People like him. I think JJ McCarthy is awesome, skill set wise. He's got an absolute cannon. He's kind of unassuming. You wouldn't think that, but he does. He has a rocket. Physical skill set's pretty strong. I like it a lot. The problem with JJ McCarthy is that he's going projected like 12th overall. JJ McCarthy, to me, is more of like a second round, third round kind of quarterback. Him and Bo Nix, both. And the fact that both of them are being projected in the top 15 is insane. A lot of people are wondering if the Saints should draft a quarterback. A lot of people are wondering if the Saints are going to be in the market for a quarterback. I would love for the Saints to get JJ McCarthy in the third round. I would not like the Saints to get JJ McCarthy at 14. That is the problem. That's why I think if we're going to look at a quarterback, we need to look at someone like Michael Pratt from Tulane, who probably will be there in the third round. But Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy, not the vibe at 14, not the vibe in the top 15. The idea, I've seen JJ McCarthy mocked at like 8, 9, 10. The fact that a top 10, like him being a top 10 pick is nuts to me. Same with Bo Nix. Again, I like both of them. I think both of them could be good in the right hands. Like Denver is projected to take Bo Nix in a ton of mock drafts. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's perfect. But at 12, in the top 15, no. I like the idea of him in the second, in the third, but it just shows you the value of the quarterback. But we're going to spend this video listening to Mel, is he wearing a white turtleneck? Talk about controversial. And Field Yates, we're going to hear them talk about the one and only JJ McCarthy.
I saved the best for last.
Jesus,
I think I
In
know
terms
where
of the most difficult player, in
Lord.
my opinion, to evaluate and put a grade on. And
Offensive tackle?
that is JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you.
I am all over the place on JJ.
Yes.
I love
Thank you for bringing
everything
this up.
about his makeup. Love the way I know he's going to test athletically because I love I love what he did, how he responded in that national title game when they were up against it.
JJ is one of those guys who probably will test well, because when it comes to him just throwing and him just moving around, jumping, running, all that talking, interviewing, all of the stuff that doesn't mean anything in the combine. I love how like the vertical, like they test quarterbacks for the vertical when I'm not sure that has ever mattered in the history of the NFL. They test, just like the most random stuff. But McCarthy will look good. He'll look good in his pro day. He'll look good in these weird 7-on-7 situations. He'll look good. As we say, he can spin the pill. He certainly can. So he probably will kind of look at, like, he'll be a quarterback who people look at and they're like, ooh, wait a minute now. We can mold this into something here. And then, of course, the intangibles they'll talk about in this video. I don't put a ton of stock into that, but you're going to hear, I guarantee you, you're going to hear he's a winner. He lost 2 games his entire college career. He's the most winningest quarterback. He's a leader of men, all that stuff. You'll hear that in this video, I'm sure, which like I said, I don't put a lot of stock in.
Momentum had swung, they were getting back in it. They had guys open. Penix just never found his rhythm. But the bottom line was they were challenged. And when he used his legs at the most opportune moment, he threw the ball when he had to, delivered some perfect strikes that were not caught. They were dropped. One by Loveland, one by Johnson.
Yep.
I love the way he didn't care about handing that ball off in the Penn State game. He's a team guy, whatever it takes to win.
Like, imagine thinking you're going to take imagine you're going to take a quarterback, like 12th overall, top 15. And you're like, yeah, look, he handed the ball off 47 straight times at Penn State. He's a team guy. It's like, yeah, okay, hey, hold on a second. Like, that sounds cool for, again, a 5th rounder, but you want to take this guy in the top 12? One of the positives, and we are a minute into this video, and one of the positives that Mel is giving him is that he was willing against Penn State to hand the ball off 30-something times in a row. Tough. That's a tough positive. I'm not going to lie to anybody here. That's real tough.
Jerome Moore's calling run plays. Hey, we'll run it down your throat, right? We got Blake Corum. We got this offensive line. We got Edwards. Hey, we're fine. We got 7, 8 offensive linemen. Hey, play to our strength, right? Not saying I'm a weakness. It's just, hey, if we can win a game, the last time I checked, it's winning the game. It's not worry about the margin, winning the game. So
this is insane. because that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about winning the game. You know, winning the game is probably like the least important statistic when it comes to grading a prospect. Like the fact that they won the game with Blake Corum running the football, yeah, that is a negative if I'm evaluating JJ McCarthy, because I have to wonder, why did they run the ball 37 times? Why didn't they run it? Why didn't they let JJ McCarthy win the game? What's up with that? Is that a problem? And you do your work and you do your due diligence, and maybe it's not a problem. But I certainly wouldn't sit here and be like, it is a positive that he was willing to do that. That's bananas from Mel.
For a team guy, tough guy, super competitive, athletic as all heck. He's going to test out really athletic at the Combine Pro Day. Does he have a howitzer? No, but can he make every throw? Yes.
He can let it rip.
But he didn't have to carry the team.
He's not Josh Allen, but he can let it go. He's probably got a better arm than Bo Nix.
And you'll want him to wow moments. I saw a couple in the national title game. Yep. But it wasn't something you saw over a 4-quarter period. He jumped out as a franchise quarterback. To me, JJ, I'm at 23 on my big board, 23, 24 area field. I don't think I can move him any higher. Yeah. Can he go higher? Possibly.
Yes, he will.
I'll ask you, where's he on your board? How do you feel about JJ? He, to me, is the most, because he's a quarterback, and that's the most important position in all sports. He's the toughest player to put a ranking on.
Let me make sure that I didn't, as I adjusted these last night, so I want to make sure that I have this correctly before I say something inaccurately about where JJ ended up. He ended up not ranked for me in my top 25 here, Mel.
That's probably about right. Like Field in the top 25, I wouldn't have JJ in your top 25. Like I said, he's a second, third round kind of guy, and he's a quarterback, so bump him up, sure. But he's not. I would have. You got your Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. Like, you've got those guys. Then I would have a big separation to the next batch. And I think the next batch are all kind of the same. The next batch of McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Michael Pratt, some of those guys. And they're all bunched up in that, somewhere. They're a quarterback, so I guess you could bump up a little bit. But they are late second, early third grades for me. Like, that's where I would have all those guys.
And I thought about it. He was 25 in my most recent edition. My new player at player 25 is Darius Robinson from Missouri. Who feel great about him, right? I love that guy.
Chop Robinson became my 25 this week.
Oh my God, Chop is going to be awesome at the Combine next week. Different conversation for a different day. But I've talked to people at the highest levels of evaluation, general managers around the NFL, and they've all told me the same thing, Mel. Nobody knows on JJ McCarthy. Anybody who tells you they know exactly what he's going to be, Mel, is lying to you. You're right. The sample size is just so much smaller on him. I'm not saying that JJ.
My problem with McCarthy, or the idea of McCarthy, and when I say McCarthy, I mean, we're going to focus on him in this video, but it really goes for all those guys. Every single one of them. It's like, would I love to have them as my third string quarterback who I'm developing for a year or two to see what they really have got in a pro environment? I would love that. I would love to have Bo Nix to where he's kind of learning and growing, and I'm seeing at like a really close basis, but there's not a lot of risk involved. I would love that. I love McCarthy, love Bo Nix there, love Michael Penix there, love Pratt there, for sure. Do I want to spend a first-round pick on this player to where now I'm accelerating that process to where they probably have to play, if not this year, then certainly next year? No. I don't love that all of a sudden. I don't love taking on that much risk up front for a player that is a development player. These are as development quarterback as it gets, 100%. And to an extent, every draft pick is a development player. You do hope that they come in, develop, and become something else. But Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, it's a totally different kind of situation. So that's where I'm at with McCarthy in this bunch, where I know quarterback is obviously the most important position on the field, which jacks up. If you're a third round grade overall and you're a quarterback, you're going to go up. You're going to be taken earlier because the teams want quarterbacks so much. That's just natural. That's just going to happen. But to go up to this level, it's crazy. Even the bottom of the first round. The Brandon Whedon territory, even the Tim Tebow territory, even the Lamar Jackson territory. You get drafted there, you have a little bit of a break. You have a little bit of a little bit there where you can come in, Manziel, where you come in and you could be a developmental situation. You could be let's see, let's wait, let's chill. Like Christian Ponder, I'm really throwing some random names out here. Christian Ponder for the Vikings way back in the day, and this is some unbelievable recall, was taken like 12th overall. He was taken really early. Ponder is the same way. Ponder would have been great to have in the 3rd round, 4th round, let develop, let sit around, put him through a training camp, put him through preseason, put him through all that, see what he's got, and go from there. But when you get taken in the top 15, you've got like maybe a season to see if you can play. Because if not, you got to go. So I just don't hate the player, or I don't hate the player, but I hate the idea of where they're being mocked.
JJ McCarthy is going to be a better player or a worse player than Bo Nix. I'll have him ranked a little bit higher, I think, by the time we get to the draft. But if you don't know what Bo Nix is by the time we get to April 25th, it's because you haven't worked hard enough. The guy started more games than any other quarterback in FBS history. JJ McCarthy is incredibly difficult to find out.
Yeah, McCarthy is way more raw than Bo Nix, and I agree with Field there. Like, how could you possibly not know what Bo Nix is? I know exactly what Bo Nix is. Bo Nix is going to be your Drew Brees clone. Like, that's what if you're drafting Bo Nix, you're hoping to be able to get that. You're hoping to get a accurate passer with, high efficiency routes. He doesn't have a super strong arm. Bo Nix is probably more athletic than Brees was, but you're not going to get a guy who's going to go out there and just bomb the ball all over the place. He needs to be in a quick release, West Coast style, super accurate system. That's what you're getting with Bo Nix. It's not hard, right? McCarthy's totally different. McCarthy's raw. McCarthy has a foundation, but that's about it. He's played in a small amount of games, and he's even in those games, like the Penn State game, you can't even use that really as tape because he's handing the ball off 30-something times in a row. So how are you supposed to use something like that as tape? And that's in a national championship season for JJ McCarthy. You would think a quarterback who wins a national championship, you would have a ton of tape on, but that's not the case. That's not how Michigan played. So he's a guy where you got to take, which is even more reason to the only way I think McCarthy could justify a top 15 pick is if he had a physical skill set like Josh Allen, to where he's raw, he doesn't have a lot of tape, he doesn't have a lot to look at, but his physical skill set jumps out so much. Like Anthony Richardson, his physical set was so unique and so elite that it pushed everything else up. McCarthy doesn't have that. So that's a mystery. His actual tape is a mystery, which I think is why he should fall out. And Nix is kind of the opposite. There is no mystery, but the skill set and all of that is not good enough to propel him to, in my opinion, a top half of the first round.
On top of the fact that he's basically a full-time starter for 2 years, Mel, as you mentioned, didn't have to do that much relative to other players. Yeah. I've used this stat before on the show, but I'll reiterate it. In his last 6 games of the season, which, that was the meat of the schedule. He had Ohio State, Penn State, Iowa in the Big Ten championship game, and then, of course, the 2 playoff games, Washington and Alabama. 847 passing yards. 847. That's like 145 a game, Mel. That's just different. That's, again, 145 yards. That's a half of Michael Penix Jr., right?
Let me ask this, Field. Let me ask, where and who was his elite wide receivers?
He didn't have I think Roman Wilson's a hell of a player.
Wilson's a good player.
Yeah, really good player.
But where was the Marvin Harrison Jr., Romo Dunze? Where was the Malik Neighbors? Where was the Brian Thomas Jr.?
Didn't have that.
Jaden had 2 of those guys, right?
Of course, yes.
So, again, where was they didn't have that.
Portland Loveland was the best player in that offense.
Centric offense, run-oriented offense, offensive line down. He didn't have that. He really never.
Now, to an extent, I will kind of back up Mel here. To an extent, if you are a McCarthy apologist, you would say he never got a chance to show any of that. He never got a chance to go out there and throw for 300 yards, 400 yards, whatever, like Michael Penix, because he didn't have to. And that kind of goes back to what Mel was saying about the Penn State game. If you're Michigan, you're trying to win. You're not trying to propel JJ McCarthy to be a top 10 pick. So Michigan is not allowing him to do that. Now, the question is, does that mean he could not have done it if given the chance? Right? Michael Penix threw for 400, 500 yards every game because he had to. Jaden Daniels did what he did because he had to. Right? So Caleb Williams did what he did because he had to. There was no other choice. That was their avenue to winning. Michigan was built a little diffy. Michigan's avenue to winning was dominating the line of scrimmage, running the football, and smothering your opponent. It worked. Michigan is trying to win a national title. So if you're a JJ McCarthy stan, that's the crux of the argument. The argument is, was it just a situation to where he didn't have to do it, so they didn't? Or was it a situation where he really couldn't be trusted to do it, so they found a different avenue to win? It's a tough conversation. It's certainly a tough question.
Had that elite wide receiver who he could say, I got a go-to guy that I got to feed that ball 8 to 10 times a game to.
I completely agree. The receiver talent, I mean, every other quarterback prospect that we've talked about has amazing wide receiver talent. That being said, I don't think it was bad players he was playing around. It's the best offensive line in college football.
Yeah, it wasn't a Josh Allen.
He should have won the Joe Moore Award for the 3rd straight season this year. Great season for Washington. I thought Michigan's offensive line was even better. They've got, I think, a future, top 50 pick, maybe a first-round pick next year. Cortland Loveland at tight end. They're going to have, Roman Wilson's probably going to be a top, 75 pick at worst, right? Somewhere in that range. Mm-hmm. Cornelius Johnson could be a day 3 pick as well, right? I mean, not a star. AJ Barner, transfer from Indiana, maybe a day 3 pick as well, right? But I hear you on the argument that way, but I still have a hard time saying that his proficiency as a passer was on the same level of any of the guys that we have talked about. This is why it's complicated, Mel, is that I can sit here and tell you some traits that I do like. And by the way, there's a really good chance he goes in the top 15 picks in the draft. Yeah. Really good chance.
Yeah, and the throws matter.
Oh, all the mocks I've seen at this stage have Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy going around 12-ish. That Minnesota, Denver area is where they have both of them landing.
When you don't throw the ball, like a lot of these quarterbacks, college quarterbacks, they make a bad throw, you forget about it because the next 5 passes are coming out of his hand, right? You're not running there, throw. And when you're doing that, the error, you don't notice, right? You notice an error when even a shortstop, he gets a ton of ground balls hit to him in the course of a game, right? He's gotten a lot of action. He's getting a lot of action. The one he booted in the first inning, right? Do you remember that when he made a great play, going deep in the hole? He went, made things happen, did his job the rest of that game. JJ had to be on, and you remembered. I remember the Maryland game right before the half.
Yeah.
McCarthy is a great example of why the draft process is how it is, because you kind of have to have these moments with McCarthy where you're just sitting there watching him throw the football. You're watching him, you're watching everything. You're watching in right there at that moment. You're not going back and watching the tape because different situation. You can get that information from Bo Nix's tape. You can get that information because of the volume from Michael Penix's tape. You can't get that information from JJ McCarthy's tape. So these are where the combine is the most important for a player like JJ McCarthy. Every throw he makes, his footwork, how he moves around, how he works out, his pro day, all of that. That's where a bulk of his draft stock is going to come from. And if you're a scout and you go there and you watch him in person and you like the way the ball comes out of his hands, you like the way he's moving around in the pocket, you like the way his field vision is, and you like the way he's working out, I would put that higher than whatever the tape is with him throwing the ball, going 8 for 14 against Illinois. And that comes with a huge, huge amount of risk. Huge amount, for sure. And like I said, I don't think his physical skill set is that elite to where it should mitigate the risk, which is why I'd push him later on in the draft.
They got a chance to extend after Maryland got back in the game, get a touchdown on the board, right? Throws a pick in the end zone, right? Yeah. Didn't see the tender, bad read. He throws 3 picks against Bowling Green, the 2 pick sixes against TCU in the semifinal game a couple of years ago. When he made an error, you remembered it because he wasn't throwing the ball 50 times a game. Yeah, okay. So he was back in the Troy Aikman days, 25 passes a game, right?
Yeah.
15 for 25 was a pretty good day back in the day in the NFL.
It was,
okay? Yeah. That's where JJ was, but Jim Harbaugh was kind of old school, where the passes mattered. And you remember the error more than you would with a guy who throws it all over the yard.
Yeah. Here's where I land. This is where I'll land on this. One thing I know for sure, Mel, the gap between quarterback 3 and quarterback 4 is large in my book.
Yes.
It's agreed. A gap. It's a
That's what I was saying earlier in the video. You've got your Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, however you want to rank them, and then a huge gap, and then you got that pocket of quarterbacks. And the gap between those guys, very small. I mean, again, I'm 10 minutes ahead of Field. He's draft analyst. This is all he does. Me, I'm propping up multiple channels. I'm propping up the Madden channel. I'm propping up, everything we're doing here. We're exploding on a whole different level. It's just, it's really unbelievable.
To golf, right? Whether you think it's Jaden Daniels as quarterback 3, Caleb Williams as quarterback 3, or Drake May as quarterback 3, I feel terrific if I'm the Patriots and I take any of those guys quarterback 3. Third player, I feel great about my investment.
Yes.
If I take JJ McCarthy 8th overall or 11th overall, the Vikings, 12th overall, the Broncos, 13th with the Raiders, 20th with the Steelers, makes me queasy.
I'll throw names out. Remember Christian Ponder? Remember EJ Manuel?
God bless.
Remember?
Can y'all believe this? Can y'all, ladies and gentlemen, really? Seriously, sit back and really kick your feet up. And we got to talk about this. Christian Ponder. Who in the world is pulling a Christian Ponder reference out of nowhere? Shaboy, no notes. Y'all know the drill. No notes, no nothing. No producers, no designers, no editors. Just me. Just Shaboy. And we're just riffing. 10 minutes ago in the video, I drop a Christian Ponder reference. A lot of people applauding at the moment, I'm sure. Then we get to this spot. Mel brings up Christian Ponder. Can you believe it? I almost released an expletive there because I'm so stunned. I'm so shocked right now.
Remember Jake Locker?
Yeah.
We can go back in the history of the draft and say all these guys, like I say, were overdrafted.
Locker. So Jake Locker, I just met her. Jake Locker was a quarterback from Washington. He was taken, I believe, 10th overall by the Titans. Somebody check me there again, the recollection. But Locker was different, and I'll tell you why. Locker was, at the time, thought of to be physically elite. They thought Jake Locker he was kind of that new style of pseudo-mobile, pseudo-pocket passer, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. They thought Locker's physical skill set was what pushed him to where he was drafted. McCarthy doesn't have that. So Locker's a little bit different. Looking back now, he wasn't anything that special physically, and he certainly should have been drafted that high, and he did not pan out in the NFL.
Maybe Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. So again, you're talking about
But Pickett's a good example where Pickett is probably a good comp as far as like at this point in the process. But Pickett, he should not have been a first. He should not have been wherever he got drafted, 21st or whatever it was. He should have been back there with Desmond Ridder and Malik Willis and all the other guys in like the 3rd round. That's where he should have gone. Same exact thing I'm saying here with and Pickett development-wise is a good example too. Should Kenny Pickett have had to play as fast as he did? No, but he had to play as fast as he did because he was taken in the 1st round, because he was taken early. If Kenny Pickett was taken in the 3rd round and he was allowed to develop, maybe he would be good. Maybe he needed that development process. Same thing with McCarthy and Bo Nix. If they're taken 8th overall, 10th overall, 11th overall, 12th overall for these teams that don't have a quarterback, assuming Kirk Cousins leads Minnesota and Denver, Russell Wilson's out of Denver, they're going to have to play. They may be day 1 starters. So then this whole development process I'm talking about, learn and see what they got in an NFL setting and go through OTAs, all that is out the window. They have to come in and be a day 1 starter. And that's just not who these guys are right now.
Teams have to have them. Can you talk yourself into some of these guys? Sure you can.
I wouldn't do it. Yeah. Yes.
You can talk yourself into a lot of these guys, Field. You can do it. And again, that's why it's going to be really interesting to see, who, as you say, is QB4. Is it JJ? Is it Michael Penix Jr.? Is it Bo Nix?
Yep.
It's still a battle. But I do think athletically at the combine, and like I said, does combine really matter? But I think it will show how athletically gifted JJ McCarthy is.
Yeah, I agree. Let me know in the comments below what you think, especially if you're a Saints fan and see someone we should be looking at. I say no because it just doesn't work. It's 14th overall. He might not even be there, but I certainly would not want to use a 1st-round draft pick on Bo Nix or JJ McCarthy. I don't think they're that good of players. I like them, but I like them as 3rd-round picks, not 1st-round picks. Let me know in the comments below where you come down on that. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.